Frank. What's the weirdest thing you've ever saw in here?
Let me ask you a question, kid. Did you see that movie, Night of the Living Dead?
Hey, we gonna party tonight or what?
Yeah, we are gonna party.
Well, where are we gonna party?
I don't know, somewhere.
Hey, we could go to the park.
Oh, no, we can't. The cops said they'd shoot us if we go back to the park. Yeah, and I ain't in no mood to go tonight.
I like death.
Greetings, ghouls, and welcome to minute 59 of Do You Want to Party, the Movies by Minute podcast for the 1985 groundbreaking horror classic, The Return of the Living Dead. I'm your host, Troy, and joining us this week is a returning guest host, who is the host of his own podcast, Half Price Horror. It is
John Seavey. Thank you for having me back.
Hey, thank you for coming back. We've actually been back and forth. We attempted to do this a little while ago, and then I fell off the face of the earth and all that sort of thing and whatnot. So thank you for coming back.
I mean, I love talking about this movie, so
Yes.
you have to pry me away from it, honestly.
Nice. That's always good to hear. All right, so this particular minute is going to start with no more windows and ends still having questions for Bert. So inside the coffin storage room, the group of four exhaustively work away at boarding up yet another window. Tired as a few last swings of the hammers are made, Scuzz and Ernie step away from the now secured entry point. Breathing heavy, Spider turns to face Ernie as he questions the amount of work ahead of them.
How many fucking windows you got in this place?
Breathing just as hard, Ernie announces the final total.
No more windows.
And after a brief pause to catch his breath, he concludes the security of the back workroom of the Resurrection Funeral Parlor.
The embalming room is steel shutters.
Once hearing that, Bert, after pulling at some of the boards nailed to the wall to check for their secureness, makes a suggestion to retreat to that point.
Well, let's get the hell back to the embalming room then. Come on.
Not needing to be convinced, all four men head towards the exit of the long room. Spider, at the last second, as he is the last to leave, reaches down to pull the door close by its doorknob. Meanwhile, back in the embalming room, the big metal door swings open into the room. Ernie, leading the charge, dashes in and around the empty examination table. He tracks the two sick men left behind with the obvious girlfriend of the younger gentleman. Still lead pipe in hand, Bert is next stepping towards his employees. Hammer in hand, Spider announces the condition of his upper appendages.
Man, my arms are dead.
Scuzz, the last to enter, closes the door behind him. Ernie's movement towards towards his desk catches Bert, who observes Ernie now fiddling with his gun.
Put that goddamn thing down, Ernie, before you hurt somebody with it. Jesus.
Ernie continues to change the magazine in his firearm as Spider approaches Freddy, who is on the ground, being cradled in Tina's arms. When Bert asks for an update on his employees,
How they doing?
a now crouching Spider asks Freddy directly about his condition.
But are you all right?
He painfully expresses his condition as Tina demands an explanation of why her boyfriend and the other men are currently like this.
What did you do to Freddy? What's wrong with him? And his man!
Angrily, as he stands, Spider expresses his need for more information.
You know, I think it's time you tell us what the fuck.
And as he steps towards the older man, now flanked by Scuzz, Bert angrily rejects Spider's request.
I don't have to tell you anything, Dickbrain.
Not liking the response, Scuzz pulls a switchblade knife and points it threateningly at Bert as the shiny chrome blade pops out.
We think you should.
At the same instant, Spider forcefully grabs Bert's arm, his strength indicating the very unlikely chance of Bert being able to move. Bert's eyes lock onto the tip of the blade. On the ground painfully, Freddy demands the truth to be told, as a crying Tina holds him tight, her face resting on his head as he rests on her lap.
Tell him, goddammit.
After a long pregnant pause, Spider shouts Bert's need to speak. And after looking around the room, Bert hoarsely begins trying to explain.
Here's a chemical.
Again, a slight pause, just as Spider releases his grip. He continues.
Here's some chemical that soaked into the soil of the graveyard and made the corpses come back to life.
Not fully satisfied, Spider demands more details.
Yeah, what fucking chemical?
Snapping quickly, not having the answer he needs, Bert turns to face Spider directly.
I don't know what chemical, goddammit!
Realizing there's no longer a need to threaten, Scuzz retracts the blade and lowers it. Bert continues to go on about where the origins of the chemicals came from and who's responsible for it.
It was ordered by the military, I think. I think it was.
And as Spider interjects about how it got to where it did,
Well, you mind telling me how the fuck did it get on?
We then end this minute. So, again, like I mentioned before we started recording, not a lot happens in this, but a lot does happen in it, which is kind of crucial with this point of the movie. We have a lot of slowdown movies, but we still got a lot of story being told in the quick procession of characters talking back and forth and all that sort of thing.
Well, that's one of the strengths of this movie, is because it's a character study in a lot of ways. You really don't get a lot of deaths until the very end. So you get a lot of time to sit with these people and really get to know them for who they are. And so these scenes where it's just the characters interacting are actually a lot of fun. It kind of reminds me of Alien in that way, where there's a lot of tension among the dynamics of the groups. And so you don't have to sit there and kill somebody off every 5 minutes in order to attract somebody's attention.
That is true. That is true. And like you had mentioned, a lot of doesn't happen until the end. And again, unlike most horror films, you start picking up your pick off your giant group one by one as it goes through. Right now, we've only lost 2 of our members, and they were spread out from each other. And again, spoiler alert, pretty much everyone that is currently alive at this point pretty much almost makes it to the very final seconds of the film itself, which is a thing that you don't realize. And you bringing up Alien is a perfect example because, again, we are talking another story written by Dan O'Bannon that there's no wonder why his characters in this are basically kind of reflecting what happens to them in the movie. And again, they last quite a while and then they start to get picked off one by one, which is what happens in this as well. So yeah.
Yeah, and O'Bannon understood that a lot of tension can be milked by just having characters who don't necessarily get along. You know, the scene with Bert, you said that he fixates on the switchblade, but he really looks like he is going to just haul off and deck Scuzz and take that knife away from him. And it's not until Freddy on the floor says, hey, look, you got to level with these people, that he finally considers that, this is a situation where lying or being dishonest isn't going to, or being obstructionist isn't going to solve problems. He needs to tell the truth. And he does as far as he knows. And it was one of those things where I was coming into this minute fresh. And so I was like, why is he lying about where the stuff came from? But then I remembered he's not lying about where it came from. He legitimately doesn't make the connection between burning the body in the incinerator and the graveyard coming to life.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, he thinks it's just the leak from the canister that Frank and Freddy let out, not realizing that they did more damage than they would have if they had just figured out another way to dispose of the body, which again, we don't know what that path would have been because that's not the path that they chose. But yeah, so we're dealing with Bert. Also the fact that he does know more details about the origins of the canister and where they came from. He's just sort of kind of hinting at it, sort of like I don't know, maybe it was the army, maybe they ordered it and all that sort of thing. So it's kind of interesting how he's still holding some cards to his chest and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, but he's not lying about not understanding why the graveyard is suddenly boiling
for sure.
up.
Oh no, for sure. Yeah. Again, he's just been introduced to this phenomenon like a couple of minutes ago when the 3 of them came to the funeral parlor no less than 5 minutes ago at most. Well, in movie time at least.
Yeah. And speaking of Freddy, another thing I noticed coming fresh into this is just how bad Frank and Freddy look. Like, when you watch the movie as a whole, you're kind of allowed to adapt to that and take it
Hmm.
in a little bit at a time. But when you just walk into minute 59, oh man, he
Yeah.
looks fucking dead.
Yeah, no, the two of them definitely. And again, it's the progress of a good thing about the movie being shot in chronological order, for the most part at least. How they are able to day by day, or like actually as they progress in the movie, the makeup on both Tom Matthews and James Karen gets like more grotesque, more grayer, more dead looking, and all that sort of thing. And it's a nice progression. And again, like you said, you watch the movie straight through, it looks natural, which is kind of cool. But if you jump into it sequence by sequence, you're like, oh wow, they weren't really that gray like the last time I was here, sort of thing. So it's kind of neat.
And also the body language. Like, Frank is just sitting there almost catatonic on his chair, and Freddy is slumped over in Tina's arms. They're really doing a good job of portraying the progression of this as it happens. I mean, I love this movie. I love just about everything about it, but it really is the performances that are such standouts. The way that everybody in this room is doing something. There's nobody, I mean, you've got Ernie in the background loading his gun. Everybody is thinking of what their characters would be actually doing in the moment. There's nobody who's just standing around waiting for a cue.
Exactly, exactly. And also the fact that a lot of the younger actors involved in this movie are really still kind of fresh to the industry. They're like within their first couple of films and all that sort of thing, and how solidly they act against these other more seasoned actors in the scenes and all that sort of thing. So it's a phenomenal, and also I think it also goes to the state that they were able to have like the 2 weeks of doing rehearsals, running through the movie scene by scene and all that sort of thing. Obviously, with the inclusion of Clue Gallagher, who didn't join until like a day or two before principal photography started filming, but the fact that the cast were able to work through the movie and develop what they needed to develop, which is also another reason why when you look at the original work print, we have a lot of continuous oneers. It's like a full like 2 3 minute scene that they eventually cut up to edit into the movie, but the whole scenes like play through and everyone's just delivering their lines straight through, and it's again a great thing that you definitely do not get in movies nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah, and another thing I confess I noticed is Miguel Nunez is both incredibly tall and incredibly jacked. Like, they do a good job of hiding the eye lines in the close-ups and the medium shots, but this has a good, nice long shot to look at, and he is easily like 3 or 4 inches taller than the next tallest actor. And because his shirt is all ripped up, you can see those muscles, and I'm like, oh, holy shit, this dude's
Yeah.
like got a physique.
Yeah, he is a very well developed young man at this point. I mean, the gentleman still is at this point in his career and all that sort of thing. But yeah, also again, being his first acting job as well. I mean, we all know the
Yeah,
story of him being homeless prior to getting this role and him getting into it. The fact that also the other fact that he's wearing a wig, which is also a phenomenal thing. But yeah, he is definitely he would get, when you see the opening shot of the group of them walking across the sidewalk, he is standing in the background of the group, but you can definitely see that he is definitely taller than anyone else. I would probably hazard to say that him and Tom Matthews are probably about the same height, but the fact that we never see the two of them standing next to each other is whatnot. And again, it's another reason why he's probably the one who gets pushed into the leadership role after they lose suicide in the basement, because he definitely becomes the protector of the group. He's the one making sure that everyone is like ahead of him as they all run. He makes sure Tina gets up the stairs and all that sort of thing. He pulls him, oh, and also Scuzz pull Tina up out of the water in the graveyard and all that sort of thing. And he is the one being forceful, wanting to know what the story is, what's going on. So I think his size is what gives him that gratitude to be the leader of this slowly falling apart group of friends.
Yeah, and it occurs to me here because I'd always seen Suicide as that guy,
Mhm.
and that's why it's so shocking when Suicide gets taken out. But no, when you watch it, you realize Miguel Nunez is really doing the leading man stuff for the punks at this point.
Mhm.
And it's one of those things where it's a shame, I mean, I know he's certainly been a consistently working actor, and that I'm very glad for him, but he should have gotten some leading man parts over the years, more than he did.
Yeah, it definitely is. Someone dropped the ball somewhere on this gentleman's career because I'm sure that we would have seen some spectacular, like, and again, this is his first role, and he does such a phenomenal job. I don't know, and also in the acting around these young actors do such a phenomenal job at acting up to a level that is beyond what this movie should be. This is a B type popcorn movie that you would see on a Saturday evening at maybe a double bill in the drive-in or something like that. But the fact that they have such phenomenal skills at such a young point in their acting careers that the realism of the situation bleeds through more than a schlock movie of this kind that would probably be coming out at the same time as well. So
Yeah, I think everything about this production punches well above its weight. Like even the screenplay, yeah, it's schlocky and it's fun and it's brain eating and it's punks, and we barely missed that needle drop of Surfin' Dead, which is probably my favorite of the whole movie. But it's also saying a lot about the way industrial accidents happen. Like Bert is just sitting there going, "Oh, let's just sweep it under the rug. Let's just burn the corpse and clean it up." And he has no idea what he's doing. He doesn't know that he's making things exponentially worse. And I know, O'Bannon was a big intellectual guy, and I'm sure he was thinking about things like Bhopal, the Indian chemical spill that had happened only like a year before this, but probably right around the time he was writing the script. And, there it was very similar things. It was like, oh, well, it says the pressure's building up in this tank, but, I mean, that dial's probably broken. It's been broken for years. And oh, we can just vent that through here, and not really understanding what would happen when he did that. And, there's a lot of these sense of industrial accidents kind of being an accumulation of little stupidities rather than one big catastrophe.
more than likely, and again, knowing that Dan O'Bannon is the type of writer that he is, he more than likely has pulled from like to the time present day sort of situations and all that sort of thing to flesh out his stories and all that.
Yeah, I thought this was actually a Chernobyl metaphor, but I looked it up and it happens. The movie comes out about a year or two before Chernobyl, so it was kind of predictive in that way of like just people doing dumb things to try to contain a minor crisis. And oh, wow, it got so much worse.
That's right. That's right. All right. So over on the commentary track, which again is the commentary track featuring Dan O'Bannon, the writer and director of the movie, and William Stout, the production designer. So Dan O'Bannon points out the sagging mohawk of Scuzz and how he wanted it to be green, and not understanding why the actor wanted it to be blonde. And as the scene changes to the embalming room, Dan mentions how the poor men are changing into zombies. He then mentions the explanation scene and how he just threw it away, comparing it to movies like the 50s Them, where they would gather at the Pentagon and discuss the situation, and then mentions how he had undercut it a little. So that's, again, Dan O'Bannon doing Dan O'Bannon's either like chopping down his own ego or building up his own ego one way or the other. Which he does back and forth throughout the whole entire movie. Disappointed that he did it this way, and then he's his biggest cheerleader when he enjoys what he's seen on screen.
I will say, I would agree that you can cut exposition a lot in horror movies. So long as the screenwriter knows what's going on and has a consistent framework for what is happening on screen, I feel like it makes things a lot worse if the characters never find out what's happening. They just have to deal with it as it comes to them.
And well, technically, like technically, this is like the third time that he's told this story. This story has been told because Frank and Freddie related to Bert earlier, and then we cut away as Bert explains the scene to Ernie, and now we get probably the last time it's going to be explained to anyone as then Bert tells it to the crowd and all that sort of thing. But yeah, again, it also helps that your screenwriter is also your director. So you're the same person knows exactly what needs to be gotten across. So it's just basically up to the edit to figure out where else it goes from there. All right, so according to the script, we are dealing with a story and screenplay, again, like we mentioned, by Dan O'Bannon. We're dealing with the reversion from 1983, and this is based on a story and screenplay by John Russo, Rudy Rickey, and Russell Steiner. Interior, mortuary, coffin storage room, night, drizzle. They, Bert, Ernie, Meat, and Scuzz. Again, for the uninitiated, the script originally gives the name of Meat to Spider, and if I ever mention the name Dee Dee, that means trash. So they, Bert, Ernie, Meat, and Scuzz, nail shut the single window. Meat. What else? Where's the rest of the windows? Ernie. No more windows. That's it. Meat. Well, what are we going to do? Bert. We got to check on Frank and Freddie. They hurry out of the room towards the back of the mortuary. Interior, embalming room, night, drizzle. Tina is sitting holding Freddie. Both Freddie and Frank are curled up in pain as Bert, Ernie, Meat, and Scuzz come in. Bert, anxious. How are they doing? Freddie, oh God, the pain. Tina, what did you do to Freddie? What's wrong with him? With that man? Meat, yeah, I think you better tell us what's going on. Bert, I don't have to tell you anything. Scuzz opens a big switchblade knife under Bert's chin. Scuzz, I think you should. Freddie, tell them. God damn it. Bert gives in. Bert, it's a chemical. Some kind of chemical that soaked into the soil of the graveyard and made the corpses come back to life. A long pause. Meat. What chemical? Bert shakes his head. I don't know what chemical. It was developed by the U.S. Army. Meat. Well, what does the chemical do? Bert. Somehow, I don't know how. It makes dead bodies come back to life. Scuzz. Jesus Christ. Meat. How the fuck do we get all? And that's where we end the actual minute. So that's where I'm going to end it in the script. So there's a little bit of extra put into the final film, which obviously we're going to change a couple of lines and whatnot because that's what happens in the moment. But yeah, so we pretty much have almost exactly what happens in the final script. But there's one extra thing that is always interesting, and that's the work print comparison. Now, again, the work print is when you finish filming your entire film, you bring all of what you shot together into a giant version of the movie, which you then edit down to get to your final version. So obviously there's going to be extra stuff. There's going to be stuff that is shot differently and all that sort of thing. So when we're dealing with minute 58 to 59 of this particular minute, the work print, we are dealing with a minute 68:56 to 70:15. So in the minute, we actually have a little bit more extra. So in the work print, we don't get Spider asking Freddy how he's doing. And except for a quick insert shot where Spider kneels in front of Freddy, everything is shot from the pulled back shot from whence they entered the scene. Only cutting to a close-up of Scuzz, Bert, and Spider once the knife is brought into the situation. However, this also gives a different line read from Clu Gallagher. Instead of the final film line of calling Spider a dickhead, he refers to him as a black bastard. The explanation of the bodies coming back to life and Scuzz's reaction as it's written in the script is here. Plus, the whole sequence is a three-shot, unlike the final version, where it cuts to a pullback shot as Spider says his line at the end of the minute. After, again, another insert shot of Tina and Freddy. So, previously in the movie, there were some sequences where the scene acts out the same way it is, but they do some AR and they change a line or two and all that sort of thing. When the yellow man jumps onto Frank, there he says something, but in the final film he just gives out a yell. And when Suicide says his line of "Go choke a chicken," the famous "Go choke a chicken" line, it actually is the original line in the work print is about her eating chocolate and all that, which is what she has during the dance sequence. She's eating some chocolate that doesn't come into play, but it's just used as a character thing. But then in the final version, they edit out the line to "Go choke a chicken." So however, in this sequence, the actual so it looks like the actual scene was reshot for Clue Gallagher to say the dickhead line instead of the black bastard line that he does in the work print, because there is no dub. It's a completely different shot. It's again a different angle of the shot too. It's not the close up that they have and all that. It's a pullback shot when he delivers that line. So it's interesting to see the slight difference between all that. And again, the work print doesn't have a lot of insert shots to cut up the scenes. Like I said earlier, like they shoot 2-3 minute scenes that get chopped up with insert shots and all that sort of thing. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a very good decision to change that. This is a movie that's doing a lot. I don't think it really needs to try to work in any racial prejudice themes. It's just for the best to just have it be Bert is recognizing this situation as one where people are dealing with a lot, and he does not need to get into his being old and racist.
Yeah, exactly. But the fact that it's not actually in the script version either, I'm wondering if it's just a line that Clue Gallagher threw in there, or I don't. It's kind of hard to say. We don't have a way to figure that out, but
Yeah, I
we will
mean, they
go.
could have been like, hey, why don't I try it this way? Why don't I see if that works? And then they're like, nope, 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 back that
Nope,
one
nope,
up.
nope. Let's try that again. Yeah, and then basically ends up calling him a dickhead, which I mean, it fits into the fact that the as soon as they actually have to come together as a group to fight off what's going on, the class drops. I mean, these punks come in, Ernie's all like defensive of them, and as soon as they realize they're all in the same situation, the class level drops. They're now on equal footing. They're now, so I think throwing in that racial sort of thing, obviously a good choice to not put in the final version.
Yeah, and I mean, both Bert and Spider think they should be in charge, but I don't think that's a class thing so much as it is a we're both natural leaders type,
Yeah,
nonsense.
yeah. Exactly. All right, so that's going to bring us to the end of this particular minute. John, would you like to promote your own podcast, which is something that is always fun to check out every once in a while when I remember that there's new episodes because I keep forgetting to update my podcast provider.
Yeah, I'm Half Price Horror. I do recaps and analysis and kind of production trivia for horror movies that I pick off the shelf at the local Half Price bookstore. So everything is kind of potluck. Right now, I am actually going through the box set of The Omen that I found some time ago. So I have finished the first Omen. Well, not the first Omen. Not the first Omen, because the first Omen is actually the last Omen movie. I am going through the series in chronological order, so I have finished 1976's The Omen, and I'm getting ready to tackle Damien Omen 2.
Excellent. I see what you got. Yeah. That does get a little. I mean, it's interesting that that series, but yeah, exactly. It's
Oh yeah, I still think it's hilarious that like Christ fully comes back in all his glory, and it's at about the halfway point of the series, and they just like they have another full sequel, then they do a remake, then they do a prequel, and it's like, man, you are just spinning this. I admire the swing.
That is true. That is true. I'd also like to point out on another, obviously a mutual podcast that the two of us interact with at different levels and all that sort of thing. How every once in a while, when I'm listening to Random Horror Generator number 9, when they get to the suggestions, and all of a sudden Half Price Horror suggests, hearing it coming out of coming out of their voices and all that sort of thing is always kind of like, hey, I know that guy.
Yeah, I started participating in that once I caught up with them, because I'd been binge listening through their archives, and I finally caught up. And I gotta say, it was the thrill of a lifetime when they actually picked one of my movies, and it was one I'd really wanted to hear somebody cover. It's a very obscure 2020 Argentinian black and white film called History of the Occult.
Oh, yes, that one. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, that I can't cover for my podcast because there's no physical media edition of it, and that's like how I make my decisions, is what I find on physical media. So I'm like, somebody needs to talk about this because it's such a cool, weird, trippy conspiracy thriller / cosmic horror movie. And they were like, well, let's give it a try. And I was like, oh, best day of my life.
Nice. All right, so I want to thank you, John, for joining me for this particular minute. Hopefully I can get you on soon again, as the movie again keeps ramping up. Every minute gets like more and more intense than the previous and all that sort of thing. So we're about to get into some highfalutin sort of situations and all that. Audience, thank you for joining me on this particular journey. It's always nice to see, even though it's just 1 or 2 every other week, to see the numbers just increase 1 or 2 a little more over the previous. If you're a fan of this particular movie, which obviously you are, because why else would you be listening to a podcast that deals with the movie at a minute-by-minute pace? You obviously know someone who also enjoys The Return of the Living Dead, so why don't you just pass this on to them? I'm pretty sure they'll appreciate it. Mind you, warn them that the first few episodes are a little clunky. Once I start getting my guest hosts involved, they become a little more fleshed out and all that sort of thing, and a little more enjoyable to hear than just myself droning on into the ether by myself. But again, John, thank you for joining me. Thank you, audience, and I got nothing else to say except see you next Wednesday.
You've just been listening to a Planet Geek production of Do You Want a Party?, a Movies by Minute podcast of the 1985 The Return of the Living Dead. Please be sure to subscribe, download, comment, share, rate, and review. Be sure to follow us on our social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Tumblr, or Letterboxd. Search for Planet Geek Productions. X, former Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky, search for Planet Geek Pod. Or send us an email to planetgeekpod@gmail.com. Our closing music is provided by Night Chill. See the show notes for more details. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and farewell, fiends.